What's happening, Marvel fans? We have a brand new game that is Marvel themed and a social deduction game. It is called Hail Hydra!
Hail Hydra! Yeah, this game is brought to you by Spin Master, the guys that did 5 Minute Dungeon and the new Furby from Christmas last year. What are those called? Hatchimals. Everybody's going crazy for those. Yeah, Spin Master. This game plays 5 to 8, I think it was, right?
Yes.
5 to 8, so you need a minimum of 5 people, which is kind of interesting, because even for other social deduction games, I think you normally get in with 4. But 5 to 8, I have no idea. I didn't time our sessions, and it doesn't say approximately on the box how long it takes to play. I'm going to say it probably took us a half an hour, 45 minutes to finish the game. Pretty streamlined.
And then it's all going to depend on how much discussion and controversy is brought up during the game. Yeah. Like, a game of Secret Hitler, for instance, can be 20 minutes, or we can have one game last over an hour because of all of the discussion and yelling and disagreeing and lying and blatant name-calling and whatnot.
Yep, and the game rates itself at 14+, which I don't think that has to do with skill level as much as it has to do with the type of game it is.
Probably.
Because playing with younger folk might be it harder for them to keep secrets or whatever.
Potentially.
But essentially, the gist of this game is that you're all playing as superheroes from the Marvel Universe, only some of you are secret Hydra agents.
Much like Captain America all these years.
Was a Hydra agent. So
Hail
they're playing off that recent comic book storyline from Marvel. And I'm just super happy to see a Marvel game come out that in this vein, I guess. I'm a huge comic book nerd. I'll just say it outright. I don't care what people think about it. I love comic books. I read them every week. So if it's got Marvel on it, I'm going to look at it at the very least and probably love it just because. The artwork on the cards, I'm not sure who it was done by. There's nobody of note on the box saying who did the art, but it's all really good. There's a whole bunch of different Marvel characters to choose from. No X-Men. I don't know why Marvel hates the X-Men, but Wolverine was an Avenger, Beast was an Avenger, Rogue, I believe, is currently an Avenger, so I'm not sure why one of those 3 couldn't got put into this game.
Could potentially deal with licensing and all that
probably
stuff too, and all that mess.
Sucks. And then there's a bunch of villains, and there's a bunch of obscure villains that in the
That's the whole thing that I would give the most praise for. It's not your standard Avengers. Yeah. I mean, yes, you have Captain America, and you have Iron Man, and there's some promos for like Hawkeye and whatnot, but you have Spider-Gwen.
Yep, Spider-Gwen, and you have She-Hulk.
You have Quake from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yep.
There's some very obscure ones, and my favorite villain is Bob the Hydra Agent.
Bob the Hydra Agent is absolutely
has made it in the game, which is wonderful.
Yeah. Then there's the Hobgoblin, a couple other random, more well-known villains.
And it was also nice to see Baron von Strucker, one of the, big names that's not Red Skull, that was actually part of the Hydra faction in the comics. And of course, Red Skull is the main supervillain that you have to beat at the end of the game.
Yep, you'll always fight Red Skull at the end of the game. And then throughout the game, you're going to progress through 5 villains that you can either pick if you just want to pick which ones you want to play against, or you can do them randomly. There's level 1, level 2, and level 3 difficulty villains. And you'll set those up, and essentially the name of the game is you're going to play cards with there's one deck in the middle. It's got red cards with negative numbers on it. We've got blue cards with positive numbers on it.
Right.
If you're a superhero, you want to put down blue cards to keep your number positive. If you're a Hydra agent, you want to do everything you can to disrupt that by playing, red cards, or even in some circumstances by overkilling the bad guy can create a problem and do some damage.
Right.
And you've got your game board, which is just a city tracker with damage on it. If the city, they say it's New York, if it's destroyed, then Hydra wins.
Right. And each villain has its own amount of hit points.
Yes.
Level 1 guys have, 4, 5, 6 or whatever. Level 2 have a few more. Level 3 has a couple more. And then 14 is what Red Skull has.
Yeah. As far as, let's talk about components. I feel like we skipped components before we start talking about the game. I got excited. Components for the game. pretty good. The cards are all your standard poker deck size cards,
except the villains.
Except
actually, no, they're
that's
not.
Right. That's right. That's a complete lie.
It's the mini cards for your plus and minus,
and the villain are tarot.
Tarot
size cards. They've got a nice finish on them. I said the artwork is fantastic. The first player token or whatever is a nice plastic token, and then there's the essential damage tracker is a pewter Stark Tower, which I thought was cool. The play board for the game
is like oak card.
Is made out of paper.
Yeah, cardstock.
It's even weak cardstock. Yes. It's like medium weight cardstock, not even. So it's terrible, and that will probably end up getting destroyed, and you might have to print one out. But that, I don't know what their decision was on making that, but it's like, it's the kind of paper that the cover of most rule books, when you're playing, when you pull out a game, it's probably that same type of paper.
Right.
The insert for this game, if you watch our videos, I'm like a huge insert fan. The insert for this game is awesome. It's a nice, hard plastic.
The plastic even has a finish on it. It's textured plastic.
It's textured plastic. It's got a place for your villains and your heroes. It's got a punch-in place for your Stark Tower, so it sits in there nice and tight. It's got a spot for your first player token. It's, I would say, top-notch insert.
Everything has a home. Everything stays in place. The tokens can be loose, but the way it's constructed, the spot for the tokens is only so thick that if they're in there and the box lid's on, they're not going anywhere within there.
They're not going anywhere. So, I would say that it's one of the best box inserts I've ever seen, which is awesome because...
The box construction was also unique where it has... this is actually a big hole in the middle, and then it opens up as a book to get to the insert, which is it's unique. It's something different.
It's cool.
It's something nice to see, trying to be different in some ways that succeeds and not tries to be different and just ends up failing,
Yeah. Yeah, so as far as playing the game goes, we played with 6?
We had 6 players.
6 players, and that gives you 2 Hydra agents. Both Charlie and I really, really wanted to be Hydra agents.
Some of us just want to watch the world burn.
It's true. We ended up with our Hydra agents in our games were mostly our more inexperienced social deduction players, and so I feel like as superheroes, I almost said superheroes, we steamrolled.
Right.
Because at any point in the game and we have a how to play up for this, which we'll link to. But at any point during the game, if you're a Hydra agent, you are allowed to just flip your card over and say, "Hail Hydra!"
You don't have to flip your card over. You can just say, "Hail Hydra!"
Hail Hydra!
And now you're a bad guy. In the game. And if you're currently in a mission, you play your cards face up.
Yep.
So you're just like, all right, here's 3 red cards. What are you going to do about it,
Yes.
And after each mission, you get the chance to vote someone off so they don't come to the mission. If you're an outed Hydra agent, more than likely you're going to get voted out. However, if you're voted out for each round that occurs for that villain, you deal a damage to the city and you pass...
You also get to steal cards.
That's right, you steal cards.
If you're knocked out, so you can knock people out every round, which is an interesting way of taking people out of the game that you think might be, the bad guys, but not removing them from the game.
Correct.
Much as in, if you play Secret Hitler and you shoot somebody, they're out of the game, they're not even allowed to talk. But in this game, at the end of each villain round, each time you beat a villain, you get a chance to vote people out, and they're knocked out, but they still can do things. A revealed Hydra agent gets to steal cards from people. So they still get to do stuff and affect the game, which I really liked. One of the things about this game is that some social deduction games, like Donner Dinner Party, I think, if you got eaten, you got turned into a ghost and got to
you can still somehow
do something, but it wasn't very, it was very minimal, but I feel like you still have a good effect on the game, even though
and the thing is, if you're knocked out, say, on the second mission, you actually have the potential to come back in the third mission and fourth mission.
Yes.
It's just per mission.
You're not out of the whole
You're knocked
game.
out. It's like you're not out of the game. Right.
So it's an interesting mechanic to still have some manipulation to the game, but not make it boring for other people. Because some social deduction games can do that when you knock somebody out. Then it's like, well, okay, and I'm just going to sit here for the next 20 minutes until this game finishes, and then I'm going to get in the next game, and hopefully I live longer. But this one does a good job of staying away from that. And
right.
I think balance-wise, it's all pretty good.
I would definitely say, yeah, it's a very balanced game. The gameplay itself, I think, is very much a positive. It's where you can play 1 to 3 cards out of your hand.
Right.
That go towards like the overall damage total.
Sure.
And then at the end, they all get shuffled up and divvied up and counted. And if you defeat the villain, you defeat it. If not, if you don't defeat the villain, they do whatever damage it says on the cards, and they lose that much health.
Yep, and so that's the whole name of the game. You're racing against trying to beat villains before they do enough damage to destroy New York City, and you're trying to get all the way down to the Red Skull and then beat Red Skull, which also has a very interesting mechanic in it, because at the very end of the game, you can beat Red Skull and still lose the game if you do too much damage to him.
If you overkill him enough, he ends up doing, 8 damage to the town or something?
Well, it's 5. Anything above 5. So if he has 5 health left, if you do 15 damage to him,
right, it's
he'll
the amount
do
of damage
5
that
damage
carries
to the
over.
city.
Yes.
So it's like you could accidentally overkill, or even Hydra agents that are still in the game at that point could throw in their big blue cards, their plus cards, to try to overkill Red Skull to the point where he'll kill the city and you still lose.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of cool too.
Right.
But overall, let's go over some pros and cons.
I would say the biggest pro outside of the components and art is the gameplay itself. It's a fun game. The theme sticks to everybody's a hero. We're on our way to defeat the villain that's attacking the city, but there could be, a Hydra agent among our midst. Well, not there could be. There is.
There is. Yeah, I would say my biggest pro, probably other than like components and stuff, is that the variety of characters in the game. I'm glad that they didn't just give us 8 characters to choose from, being that there's 8 players. They gave you, I think, 14. The back of the box says 14 different characters to choose from. And then there's another, if you can find them, another 5 or 6 San Diego Comic-Con and Gen Con promo characters and a couple of promo villains. But there's also a big variety of villains as well. So I think that's probably one of my biggest pros. Is
and each hero has their own special ability that can be used once during the game, which some of them are better than others.
Yeah, that's true.
My biggest con with the game is there wasn't enough interrogative abilities with the game itself. Yes, some heroes could use their one-time power to investigate to see what 3 cards they have or what they laid down, so you can potentially see if they laid down more than 1 red card more than like their Hydra agent. But what I would have liked to see is, based on the amount of damage done on the city, there could have been some sort of like interrogation or something like that. Sure. Figure out that one person can interrogate and look at another token, and there's a way to figure it out, but a way to kind of stir up that discussion and controversy and building conflict that one of the Hydra agents, can come out, and I always like to refer to it as being a heel in the wrestling world. Come out and be that bad guy and really stirring up the game and causing drama, causing conflict, putting the other Shield agents against each other because they don't know what the other Hydra agent is. That's one of my favorite things to do in Secret Hitler, is be the heel.
And I think that depending on who your Hydra agents are in your game is going to determine how much of a level that happens. Because our games did not.
They weren't that way because we had newer players. That if Froese or I would have been a Hydra agent,
we would have screwed.
We would have been screwing with the game so bad. I would have jumped up and Hail Hydra and started slamming down red cards.
That would have been awesome. That would have been awesome. But no, we were on the good guys the whole time. I'd say my biggest con on this is that the game specifically tells you that you're not allowed to or not supposed to say specifically what numbered cards you put in. You're supposed to talk in more generals, and I don't understand that. When I'm playing games like we played it's a little social deduction game called
Done or Dinner Party.
No, with the mechanic one.
Trader Mechanic.
And Trader Mechanic, you're putting in mechanic parts, right? But for that one, and it worked a lot the same way as this, where you have a goal that you're trying to meet within a certain parameters, and you put in car parts. But part of the fun of that game was saying, I put in 2 headlights, and and specifically saying this is what I did, even though you're lying, because you don't want people to see it, or as Charlie was saying, to create more conflict, because there are +4 red cards in here, and you say, oh well, I played the +4 red card, and then somebody else says, wait a minute, you didn't, I played that +4 red card, and then that creates that conflict that kind of makes the game a little more
creating that conflict and uncertainty gets to the point like I really can't trust either of you because you both say they're Hydra agents. Like you're a Hydra agent. Well, no, you're a Hydra agent. I played that 4. It's you. That alone then like almost negates them from doing something in that game. And if you're a Hydra agent, that's exactly what you want. Yeah. Because sure, in some of the later missions, you can knock out 2 people, but if you end up knocking out a agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., that it's so much more detrimental that if you're a Hydra agent and knocked out, there's still a lot of chaos you can do, and even at that point you could out yourself and start stealing cards, and someone that only has a couple of cards and they know they have 2 blue cards, take one of those blue cards. Yep. It's a big deal,
Absolutely. As far as rating goes, I'm going to give this a 6 out of 7, which is Amish.
It is Amish.
I would actually give this a 7 out of 7 if Wolverine was in this game. The insert in this is amazing. I'm super biased when it comes to comic book based franchise games, especially Marvel, because it's my childhood growing up reading X-Men comics and Spider-Man comics and stuff like that, and Avengers and all of that. So I'm a little biased, but yeah, I give it a 6 out of 7. I'm excited to play it again. I think the more comfortable you are with the game, the more the social sabotage will come in.
I agree.
So
I'm going to go one step lower and say it's a 5 out of 7, which is a Lumberjack, just based on those few little rule nuances that I want that little bit more of. If your players don't stir up the controversy, the game will do it for you. And like Hitler is a perfect example of doing that, where the game will stir up that controversy if no one's doing it.
Right. Kind of forces the hand there a little bit.
There's another game that the amount of content they can provide with this game
could go on
is
forever.
Endless, because the Marvel Universe is huge.
Exactly.
Whereas you could have more than just Red Skull. You could obviously have Ultron. You could have Thanos. You could have it all.
Galactus,
and you can even...
I don't know why he'd be a Hydra agent, but who cares?
I mean, if he's a bad guy, ergo he's a Hydra agent, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That aside, it's endless, and that would be able to have so much more replay value.
Oh, yeah.
That it's going to be a different game every single game based on the number of heroes you have, based on the number of villains you have, and even potentially with expansions that maybe they do add those events that will cause some things like that. After you lose the 1 damage, maybe there's like an event deck or something like that, and something happens, and
keep it out. It's not out of the question for Spin Master, because Spin Master just recently finished a Kickstarter for an expansion for 5-Minute Dungeon.
Right.
So it's definitely not out of... Because, again, this is a little bit more mass marketed than, our typical board game.
This wasn't on Kickstarter. It just showed up like, hey, this is coming out next month.
Yeah.
And that's what we saw.
It was like, hey, this is coming out next month. And I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to pre-order this on Amazon. And then, 2 weeks later, it was delivered. And I was like, really? That's cool, I guess. But we've also heard that Spin Master is going to be coming out with a Marvel version of 5-Minute Dungeon, right?
Correct.
So keep an eye out for that. We'll definitely have information on that when it comes out, because I love 5-Minute Dungeon. And
you love Marvel.
And so that's just 2 awesome things put together. But we're going to go ahead and take off. We'll link the how to play video in the description of this. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button for us, if you wouldn't mind.
You can find us on social media.
Yep.
We have a Facebook, we have an Instagram, and we have a Twitter.
Oh, God. Yes. Take it easy, and always remember to Hail Hydra.
Hail Hydra!